Why are we inviting the problems of the world at our doorstep and then be anxious about it? This sense of hopelessness, helplessness, and guilt is the root cause of the majority of the mental health problems facing the modern age. Hey friends, if you're new here, I'm Anirudh, a third year medical student at Goa Medical College, and thank you so much for giving me your precious time. Let's continue. So for the past 2 years, India has been through a lot. We've been through the CAA protests, the farmers' protest, the COVID-19 pandemic, the lockdown, the huge migrant crisis, a state of complete chaos, confusion, fear, anger, everything. Then we had a brief moment of silence when the cases were coming down, and then of course the dreaded second wave of COVID-19 which has completely collapsed our healthcare system. And it feels that we are inching closer towards a national suicide. That is if you are referring to your social media apps and to the news. But consider this, there are only 450 smartphone users in India and not all of them are on social media. A huge majority of Janta in our country is dependent on only one thing, and that is money. They want to make money on a daily basis so they can afford roti, kapda and makan. The basic things in the life, a lot of people, the majority of the people in this country don't have satisfied. I don't think that we are going to such a catastrophe that social media and the news outlets are telling us about. Now let us address our problem. And by us, I mean those people who have enough money or their parents' money to afford a smartphone, to afford an internet connection, and to afford those headphones through which you're listening to this particular video. We are definitely privileged. And there's a certain amount of problem that comes with being too comfortable. Human beings are problem-solving machines. When the basic things in our life, and I hope that if you're watching this through a mobile, the basic things in your life are completely satisfied, we are striving to look out for problems. There are no immediate problems in front of us. Immediate meaning all these basic problems I talked about, food, shelter, water. If they are satisfied, the human mind starts thinking about new problems, looking outside to invent sometimes new problems and try and solve them. And social media has just made it very easy to find a problem. When you just go into your Google news feed, you'll see problems. Everywhere there are problems. Some protests happening to some issue in some other country, some issues happening in over here in the state of Goa, like with the Mollem issue or with the whole taxi and Goa miles issue. There are so many different problems plaguing the world today, amplified through social media. It is very easy to grab a problem from any part of the world and make it your own, to post about it on social media. Yes, even I post about some of the issues that concern me on social media as well. But you need to ask yourself a very key question. Is this destroying your mental health? Is this unconscious search for problems that are external, that don't exist necessarily internally? Like, how is the Israel-Palestine conflict right now affecting you at a personal level? If you're a Jew or if you're a Palestinian, yes, it matters to you. But I'm pretty sure that we living here in India, it doesn't really matter to us. But that issue occupies our headspace. We start reading about it. We start talking about the deaths, the violence, the bombs, the rockets. And all of these negative things, they occupy a certain mental space. And the way a memory works is that once it receives a particular stimulus and it likes the stimulus, it'll keep on searching for the negative information to reinforce it. Memory works on reinforcing. The more you reinforce a particular memory, the more those neurons become sensitized to that particular information. And the more that this memory keeps on accumulating over time, it'll become stronger. So if someone comes to you and asks you, how's your life going? Or how do you think the world is functioning today? You may have a very negative perception about the world simply because all the negative information around you has continuously been stimulated to you, has continuously been reconfirmed to you by multiple sources. Probably you've made a friend circle where you discuss only about the issues, the problems in the world, things that are going wrong in the world. Or maybe the information that you consume on YouTube, on social media and all the different platforms, especially Twitter, they are reinforcing your worldview. Whereas if you talk about in general over the past 20-30 years, there has been a massive decrease in poverty. The United Nations, for example, wanted to halve the poverty rate by 2015. They made this goal in 2000 and we were able to achieve this goal of halving the world poverty by 2013, 2 years in advance. But nobody talks about it. Nobody is talking about the positives that humanity has. One more quick thing that I want to talk about over here is that this sense of helplessness. You feel you cannot help. You feel you cannot do anything. And actually it is beyond the capacity of one single individual to help the entire world. There are too many people with their own biases, with their own ideologies and their own unconscious biases that resolving this entire problem of humanity is too much for one particular person. You feel helpless because you think in terms of helping other people by creating social media posts, but it simply is an impossible job. The world is so big, and it seems that people are so full of violence that all the events that have transpired in the past 2-3 years, it seems that this is simply an explosion of all the violence that is accumulated in people over the past few years. The solution to this is to first identify the things that you control. Is your health fine? Are you vaccinated? Is the people around you vaccinated? Are they healthy? Are there any family problems around you? First, let us sort your house before questioning the word. Jordan Peterson ने ये कहा है, and I think this is very apt because even Mahatma Gandhi said the same thing. Be the change you want to be. One of the best quotes ever said by any person who has walked on this planet. And then when you have your own house in order, you can dare to help other people. So what are the things that you can do to help in these times of crisis? You can monitor home isolated patients. There are so many organizations, so many NGOs who are doing this. The second thing is that you can aid in the delivery of oxygen. What India is facing right now is not that the production of oxygen is lacking. It is the delivery. There are no trucks or there are no resources to deliver the oxygen from the manufacturing to the end point, that is the hospitals and healthcare centers. You can be of help in this particular case. The next thing is arranging for the free distribution of food. There are so many people who have gone back into poverty simply because of all the lockdowns which are necessary to control the infectivity and the cases in the country. There are so many NGOs, so many corporates who through their corporate social responsibility are distributing free food to these people. You can take part in that. Be a volunteer for change in such causes. The next thing that you can do is the establishment of Kovaid care centers. So these are basically Kovaid care centers where people who cannot afford to isolate at home, you can provide them free isolation facilities. And I've already made a video on how you can do this. It's in the format of a vlog. You can check it out right up over here. And this will really help those people who cannot or don't have a room in their house to isolate from the rest of their families. You can step up in these times of crisis. Now the next thing to understand is that humanity has been through a lot of calamities. Believe me or not, even with this pandemic, these are still the best times to live. The 21st century, I mean. Could you imagine if COVID happened somewhere in the 1970s or the 60s? No internet. The only source of mass media was probably the radio or your local village head and coming and shouting on the microphone. So many people would have died. So many people would not have known what are the symptoms of COVID, where to get tested. Probably there were no tests available. So these are brilliant times that we are living over right now, that we are able to manage this microscopic enemy with all the resources available. Yes, it is not imperfect, but which other system is? If COVID happened back in the day, we would probably end up like the Spanish flu, which killed 1/3 people in Europe. So be blessed that you're born into times which have this adequate amount of technology where we can fight against this particular virus. Giving yourself a historical context, an ancient context, will tell you and appreciate the privileges that we have in this particular generation. So in psychology, that they have found is that the fear of anything on this planet primarily comes due to the fear of death. For human beings, the fear of death far supersedes any other fear. And this death is not only physical, it can be even death of ideologies, of religions, of long-held beliefs, what we call cognitive dissonance. We'll talk about these concepts some other time on this channel, but this video was specifically to address the COVID-19 mental health problems. When death is near, when death is literally on your doorstep, The number of deaths that we used to see in the first wave of pandemic, they have translated into names. You know some friend's family or some relative where a death has occurred and you feel that you are next. Yes, this is a possibility. And this is why when your mind thinks about death, it releases these neurochemicals that modify your brain to think in terms of flight or fight. And this is when the emotions hijack the logical part of your brain. Now the way out of this is quite tough, okay? Especially if you don't have a spiritual background. Now the fear of death is a very primal base human instinct. And it takes several years to get rid of this particular fear of death. It is not at all easy. We are constantly fed by society all around us to fear death. Everybody fears death. So we think that it is a normal thing to fear about death. But if you read a little bit more about spirituality, I'll be making videos about these in the future. So do hit the subscribe button for the same. But if you talk about the fear of death from a spiritual perspective, it is just like you're going from one cloth to the other. Understood? Death is just going from one body to another body. You can see this concept in multiple spiritual ideologies or multiple even religious beliefs like Hinduism, Buddhism. And once the fear of death starts decreasing, you will automatically notice that your other fear of heights, fear of cockroaches, lizards, all the kinds of fears that we have, fear about money, fear about career, they will also start decreasing. Because all of these other fears, they ultimately lead to death in some form or the other. So that's it guys for this particular video. If you could handle the constant rambling that I have been done in this particular video. This video actually had not a lot of scripting. These are just my thoughts about how we can handle the mental health stress in these times of COVID-19 pandemic. So if you are looking forward to such raw conversations, such real videos, do hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you found value in this particular video. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.